Hi, I'm Sarah and welcome to my first garden tour of 2020. This is the overview of my garden. It's built on a 10 foot by 10 foot square. So we have this bed is 10 feet by 2 feet. It's filled with mostly flowers. This bed is 6 foot by 4 foot, and so is that one. And then our walkways are 2 foot walkways, as you can see. So why don't we start with the long bed? First thing we have is a rhubarb plant. This plant actually has been in my life for many years. It's from my parents' house, so I grew up with this rhubarb plant at my house. And then when we moved here, actually my brother owns the house we live in and I'm renting the apartment with my husband. And my brother asked my parents if we could have part of the plant, and so they let us take some of it, and now it's in our garden, which is cool. Throughout I have marigolds and alyssum that I got from Starts, and through the center here is all wildflower mixes, so they are starting to sprout. The funny thing is, a lot of this I'm sure is weeds, but at the same time a lot of the wildflower mix flowers probably would be considered weeds, so I'm just kind of letting them go and we'll see how it turns out. On both beds there's going to be an arch that goes over top, and it's actually the roof of it's going to go all the way across. Those are the beams we're building it right now, and it's gonna almost look sort of like a pergola style. It's gonna be really pretty. And so I have beside my rhubarb a few beans planted. Look, this one is real rough, but then this one's beautiful. This poor guy, he got topped. Somebody ate him. Then we have one more sprouting. And then over here we've got 2 cucumbers, one here and one there, which will connect to these cucumbers, where we have 1, 2 that have started. And then in this square foot, none of my seeds germinated, so I just started 2 more seeds yesterday. And then here's the rest of the beans. So the beans will be mostly on this side, and that's because this is the southern end of the bed and this is the north. So I figure I'll put more on the south side because the north ones, they're not going to get a lot of sun, and so I'm not sure how well they will do. I didn't want to make a big investment. Also on the arch, I'm going to have hanging baskets from each post. This one here, that's a strawberry mint plant, and honestly I was going to get peppermint or spearmint because I like them for tea, but when I saw it I was so intrigued. I thought, I've had peppermint and spearmint before, let's try strawberry mint, why not? And then that one there is called woolly thyme, and I'm sure it's edible. I honestly don't even know, I just bought it because it looked so cool. I don't know if you can tell, but it literally does look like it's hairy. I love it so much. Moving on, this is an oregano plant. I planted a few herbs in my in-ground gardens last year, and this is the only one that made it through the winter, and so now it is in my bed, and it has already almost doubled in size since I transplanted it, which is crazy because I only transplanted it maybe a week or 2 ago. You can see it's so happy, it's even flowering. It's actually already doing better than it did last year. It just goes to show the quality of my garden beds last year, and I'm so happy that we decided to switch things up. Throughout this bed also, actually throughout all my beds, I have some sunflowers planted, and I'm pretty sure those 3 guys there are sunflowers starting, so that's really exciting. Over here we've got my sugar snap peas. These are gonna grow up the trellis, and you can see the ones on the other side. They're getting so tall, so we just have some makeshift things to keep them up until the trellis is made, but I've already had to increase the height of it twice now, so hopefully we can get those trellises soon. And then lastly in this bed we have a Tomatillo plant here and Keuka Melons. So I'm pretty excited about the Keuka Melons. I have them planted really close together because I read on a gardening Facebook group I'm a part of that Keuka melons like to be really crowded. So even though I have more space on either side designated to my Keuka melons, you can see it's kind of empty right there, I decided to just cram them in, and I'll fill it later. Now the Tomatillo plant is here because they take up a lot of space, and you actually have to have 2 Tomatillo plants for them to cross-pollinate. So I have my other one planted over there, and we will look at that in a second. Okay, let's move to the southwestern bed, which is mostly peppers and a few other things. So I guess we'll start at the bottom and work our way up. So here I have a zucchini plant. I planted Italian striped zucchini. I believe this is the second one coming up because I did plant a few seeds. So I'm pretty sure that's what that is. And then here, 1, 2, 3, I think those are more sunflowers, but not quite sure. We'll find out. And I gave it lots of space. It has a 2 foot by 2 foot square, mostly dedicated to it, so the rest of this area around at the moment is empty. I may fill it in later, but I want to give it some time to grow first. I also think I could put some radishes in there, but because they grow quickly, but I don't know, we'll see. Next door is that other Tomatillo plant. Tomatillo, I don't know how to say it, but the other one, so that they will cross-pollinate. I wanted them to be at the ends of bed so they could kind of spill over top, and then hopefully they'll work well. And beside it, you can't see it this angle. There we go. These are all my red Burgundy onions. I started them from seed in February or March. I can't remember if I started them before Ike was born or after, but oh no, I started them after. It was in March. So they're actually doing really well. I've cut them a couple times now and they have some good little bulbs starting, which is great. And then here are my peppers. So I'm actually filming another video that won't be up till the end of the season, but I was learning this week about topping peppers and it really intrigued me. I have a short-ish growing season here. I'm in zone 6A. Our last frost is usually mid to late May, and then the first frost is sometime in October. So it's not the longest, but it's not the shortest either. So I decided to do an experiment. So these 6 peppers here are not topped, and then those 6 peppers, I have topped them, except for that one little guy. I'm gonna let him grow a little bit more before I top him. So I just wanna see how the topping affects the plants. So we'll see which ones produce more, which ones get taller. I mean, I'm assuming these ones are gonna get taller because they're not topped, obviously. So we'll have to wait and see. I have 2 types of peppers. I have Purple Beauty peppers, I believe they're called, and your classic California Wonder. One pepper that is not that is this one, which I just got it at a garden center. Here's the tag. So I don't know if it's like a special kind or if it's just another California Wonder that's not labeled that way. I don't know. So, but it's quite dark, and actually I was reading that the leaves of peppers aren't supposed to get really dark, that actually my peppers are a healthier color because they're more of like a lime green. So this one must have had too much nitrogen, I think, in the soil mix that they used. So we'll see how it changes over time. Here I have another pack of red onions that I just haven't planted yet. They're doing fine in the pack, so I'm just gonna leave them until I decide where to put them, though I am thinking of putting them with the peas. And last thing I have over here is another little Tomatillo plant, a 3rd one. I don't really know what to do with him because I only need 2 and I don't really have room for another one. So I might just throw it out, but oh, it just kind of kills me to do that. We'll see. Maybe I'll just put it in a pot. Okay, and the last bed is my tomato bed. You can see them growing there really well. But we'll start here. Here we have the majority of my yellow onions, and they're doing fine. The bulbs actually aren't as big as the red ones, so I might give them another haircut today and just keep forcing the plant to focus on the bulb rather than the stem. There you can see another sunflower coming up, and there's one there too. And then in this corner I've got my carrots and my radishes. Now if you watched my last video, you'll know that the weather has been really strange the last few weeks. So first it was so cold that there was no way we were gonna be able to plant anything except for carrots and radishes. But my beds weren't built yet, and I figured, oh, it's so cold, it'll be fine, I'll have time when I build them to put them in. Well, I put them in, and not 3 days later do we have a random, out of the blue, 3 or 4 day long crazy heat wave, and it was so hot. So here you can see these are my first set of carrots, and only a few have sprouted. I actually need to water it again, so I'm really sad about that. But under this board is my second wave, and I just planted them, so I anticipate there'll be nothing here. And yes, there is nothing there. I literally just planted them yesterday. So and here are my radishes, and they're doing great. Here I've got cherry bell radishes, and then these ones are champion radishes, and then I just planted yesterday another row of cherry bells. I don't have super high hopes for the radishes and carrots just because it's been so hot. Well, so it was so hot when they first got put in that I don't know how they'll do. But hey, we'll see. Because right after our 4 days of heat wave, we had 2 nights where it was almost frost. It wasn't cold enough that I had to cover, but it was almost there. It got down to 6 degrees Celsius. So who even freaking knows? Okay, now right here, these 2 tomato plants are purple Bumblebee cherry tomatoes. And in between I have a basil plant. Honestly, I do not like cherry tomatoes. I don't eat tomatoes raw. I love to cook with tomatoes, but cherry tomatoes I rarely use. I just thought they looked so cool. I was so intrigued, and my husband loves cherry tomatoes, so I thought, hey, let's give it a try. Next here, this is my brandy wine, and I'm a little nervous about this because they apparently are notorious for getting sick. So far it looks really healthy, but we'll have to wait and see. So pray for my brandy wine. I would love to get something from it, but if I don't, it's okay. It's fun to grow tomatoes no matter what. And here I've got another, the basil, I just did your generic like Italian basil. Okay, next I have 2 Homestead tomato plants. This tomato cage is not going to stay. I'm actually going to give each tomato plant its own 5 or 6 foot tall stake so that they can grow really, really tall. We just haven't been able to go into Home Depot to get some yet, and it's such a long wait, so we'll get them when we get them. But for now, the tomato cage is working just fine. Now you can see a little bit of sunburn. My tomatoes look so good compared to when I put them in. So last year I started from seed and I just threw them in the ground, and a lot of my plants died. So this year I learned about hardening them off, and I did that, but I got a little bit too excited with my tomatoes, and the first day I put them in the sun, I ended up forgetting about them. Actually, it was the day that we were doing the majority of building our beds. So if you go back to my building our beds video, it gets really sunny when we're working, and they were out in the sun the whole time. They should have been out for an hour, and they ended up being out for maybe 4 or 5 hours. It was really bad. So they all got really sunburned. Now luckily they've grown enough that I was able to cut that away on most of them. So yeah, here's my Homestead tomatoes. Hopefully they turn out well, but so far they are just looking really, really nice. So lots of new growth, and I'm happy. Before I move on, these are the Keuka Melons. So same as last side, but this flower here is a Diplodania. My dad got that for me for Mother's Day this year. It was my first Mother's Day. And look, it's already climbing up. I wasn't planning on this tomato cage being its permanent trellis. That's why it's just thrown in there and kind of crooked, but looks like that's what it's gonna be. Lastly, we have my 4 San Marzano tomatoes, which are the heart of my garden. A little backstory. I started my first garden 3 years ago, and it was such a last-minute decision. We were renting an apartment that was on a 100-acre farm, and my landlord let me start a garden in the front yard, which was super nice of him. And it was the first week of July. It was super hot, and I just went to a garden center and just bought a whole bunch of plants, whatever they had left that didn't look horrible. And they were literally selling 4 cell packs of plants for 25 cents. So 4 plants for 25 cents. It was amazing. I got so much stuff and just crammed it into that garden. And you know what? It went really well. I did eggplant, and I had so many eggplants I didn't know what to do with. And turns out I really don't like eggplants, so I gave all of them away. I had more zucchini than I could deal with, and San Marzano tomatoes. And I made so much spaghetti sauce that year, and it was just really nice. I loved sharing it with people and inviting people over for dinner with sauce that I made from my own garden. It was just very special, and so I think that I will always, always, always have San Marzano tomatoes in my garden for that reason. It just warms my heart, and I absolutely love it. And they're doing really well. This one looks good. Yeah. This one you can see how it's quite sunburnt. And I cut away the worst parts, but I'll let this one grow a little bit more, and then I'll cut these off. I mean, all the parts that you can see of my tomatoes that have some burning on them are gonna get cut away eventually anyway, because I'm gonna have like the bottom 2 feet of tomato stripped when they get tall enough so that there's lots of airflow underneath. And so really almost all of the leaves you see are gonna eventually get stripped away. Now, I did notice last night, and I left it to show you, someone has gotten into one of my plants, and I have been looking for the culprit, and I can't seem to find him or her. No, that's just dirt. So it's only a couple leaves, so maybe I'll just, actually they look fine. I think I'll just leave them, and I'm just gonna keep looking out for that bug and some eggs. I haven't seen any eggs either, so I'm not too worried. But you can see there's a little bit on this plant too, just a little. No, nothing there. So, yeah, but those are my tomato plants, and they are looking really good. This one is just at that first ring, and over there, that one is quite tall, which is great. And lastly, here are my sugar snap peas. So this arch that's gonna be here, I have been referring to it as my candy arch, because sugar snap peas and Keuka melons are like candy in your garden. I got 1 pea, or no, I got 3 peas last year because I threw them in last minute. I think I direct sowed the seed at, probably mid or late June. So it was not pea season at all, but I was like, whatever, it's fine. And look, we've actually got a little flower. Here's a little pea, it's gonna be on another one. So I'm gonna be getting some peas soon. And they're doing really well. The bases look a little unhappy. And I think that was just from transplant shock. So the Keuka Melons, I did try Keuka Melon last year. Again, it was like a late decision. I only learned about them last year, and by the time I got the seeds and threw them in the ground, they just, you know, Keuka Melons take a while to get started. And apparently once they get going, they really take off. But my growing season ended by the time they started to take off. So I only got one Keuka melon, and it was still a little immature, and so it was quite sour, but you know what? It was still delicious. So I am so looking forward to that. Look, here's another. Oh, you see that? So here's the flower, but this is a pea. That is so exciting. So yeah, these are getting tall. This guy has almost outgrown the trellis, so we need that built soon. Ah! This is the window box. So it's covered here under the roof, and I've got some snap peas growing, and I'm going to create sort of like a web, like a trellis just out of twine, and it's going to connect to that pole, and they'll grow up there. And then beside it, this is Iceberg Lettuce, and I'm just going to use a cut and come again method as I grow it. We did this last year. It was so successful and really nice. We didn't have to buy lettuce all summer. It was great. Here I've got some flowers. So this is sweet Alyssum, and this one is, what's the tag? Decandra Silver Falls. And this blue flower, it's turning up kind of purple, but it's actually like a vibrant royal blue, is called Lobelia Riviera, Midnight Blue. So I'm keeping the tags in case I really like them, and I'll grow them again. So I have those kind of throughout. And then over here, this is red romaine lettuce. And same thing, we're gonna do a cut and come again method, and a couple more peas, which will grow up this side. So that's the window box. It's doing really, really exceptionally well. I'm very happy with it right now. Okay, well, that's the end of my first garden tour. I am really excited for this year. I feel like this is my year. I've got really high hopes. I'm feeling really confident. Wish me luck, and I'll see you next week.